Welcome to Write On Audio. We hope you enjoy this feature presentation. All Write On Audio presentations are protected by copyright and are the exclusive property of Write On ePublishing LLC. If you enjoy this presentation, please like, share, and subscribe to receive notifications of all our latest content. This presentation is intended for mature audiences. Discretion is advised. Now please enjoy this Write On Audio feature presentation.
Write On Audio presents Quickload, a Write On Press feature presentation. Jake, care to share your thoughts about King Lear's decision to banish Cordelia? Mr. Silver asked. I looked up from the game I was playing on my cell phone. I don't know, I said. The class hushed as it always did when I said this. And then, of course, the whispers. They weren't used to seeing the golden boy not have an answer. They smirked, smiled, and sneered. It was like I could hear their thoughts every time it happened. See? He's not that smart. Finally, something Genius Boy doesn't know. What a fraud. Always the same smugness. If there's one thing that I've learned in high school, people don't want you to succeed. Your success is a direct threat to theirs. And even if you do succeed, they're just waiting for the moment you slip up. Then, their true feelings come out. I don't know, maybe it's just here. Mercersburg is a boarding school of tryhards gunning for Ivies. The bridge outside campus is nicknamed the Harvard Reject Exit for a reason. But I only needed to wait 15 minutes. 15 minutes, and the whispers would go away. Barry, Mr. Silver asked the gunner sitting at the front of the class. Lear falls prey to the sycophancy of his older daughters and his court. This later, of course, becomes the catalyst for Lear's downfall and his madness, Barry finished. Exactly, Mr. Silver said. Oh, great. Barry did the reading and understood the point of the story. What a genius. I'll never understand how people get a feeling of accomplishment from regurgitation. You read a book, teacher asks you a question about the book. You answer, you get an A. You go home and jerk off to the validation. Great job, Barry. You earned it. Mr. Silver pontificated for about 10 minutes about King Lear, and then it was time. I took out the bottle of sleeping pills from my backpack. The kids around me looked with half concern as they'd done hundreds of times before. I emptied the bottle of pills into my mouth. Jake? What are you doing? Mr. Silver asked. I raised my finger to indicate the need for a moment. I chugged my water bottle, and the class looked on in horror as the light faded away and brought me to cold darkness as it had every time before. Then light, warmth, vision. Jake, care to share your thoughts about King Lear's decision to banish Cordelia? Mr. Silver asked. I looked up from the game I was playing on my cell phone. This is the defining moment for Lear that sets up the rest of the story. His need for sycophancy and banishing the only daughter that loves him becomes his downfall, I replied. Astute as always, Mr. Harris, Mr. Silver said, and began the pontification I had already heard. In video games, there is a utility called quick saving and quick loading. Let's say you want to kill the castle guard for his armor, but you don't know if the consequences will prevent you from future parts of the game. So, you quick save. You kill the guard. Turns out the guard is an important character. No worries. You quick load and you're standing back in front of the guard before you killed him. 3 years ago, when I was a freshman, I was failing out of every class. My parents, my only friend Jay, and the school psychiatrist just told me to relax. My anxiety was preventing me from performing the way I needed to. It's hard to relax when you're surrounded by failure, and everybody's answer is just relax. So I took the only exit available, the Harvard Reject Exit. But it didn't work. Instead of finding tragic demise at the bottom of the Bayuka River, I found something else entirely. I can't call it a man, but it looked like a man with the head of a fish and the fins of a dolphin. I was fading away from the world when it swam to me. Through the murky water, a deep rumbling came from its mouth, and when it finished, I was back on the bridge moments before I jumped off. I thought it was just a second chance until I slipped on black ice and the back of my skull caved in. I bled out on the cold pavement until... darkness. Cold. Nothing. Then again, light, warmth, and vision. I found myself back on the walk from my dorm to class, 15 minutes before slipping on the ice. I decided it was time to experiment. I tried offing myself in every way imaginable. Overdosing, asphyxiation, blunt force trauma, always the same thing. I just came back 15 minutes before it happened. I swam in the Bayuca trying to find the fish man who made it happen, looking to find some answers. But every time I went out, it was never there. I figured there was no use wasting the power of some fish god, so I used it. I finished the semester with A's in all my classes. I didn't need to study, really. I'd get to the test, see the questions, eat a bottle of pills, and then just find the answers through textbooks or Google 15 minutes prior. Voila, 4.0 GPA. But I couldn't just let it end there. I had the opportunity to be the best at everything. I joined wrestling and won the state championship in my weight class 3 years in a row. It suited my power because the matches only last 7 minutes. I could lose, die, and come back knowing exactly how to beat my opponent. Sometimes it took a few tries, but I never lost. I got the lead role in every play for 3 years in a row. Acting was a challenge at first, even with my power. Turns out just being able to quick load back to the beginning of a scene to remember the lines doesn't make you a good actor. But if I quick loaded enough times into the scene eventually, I got comfortable with the words and the feelings. It was perfect. I learned acting wasn't about remembering lines. It was about trying out a moment enough times until it felt right. And with my power, I could get it right every time. After Mr. Silver's class, I went to the dining hall for dinner. Mark, who recently received a scholarship to Johns Hopkins for lacrosse, waved at me to join him at his table. As I waved back, I saw Jay, my only friend from freshman year, eating with his music friends in the far corner of the hall. I got my food and made my way over to Jay. He had his head in a book as he ate. "Hey man, you want to play some FIFA tonight?" I asked. "Nah man, AP Bio final is tomorrow. Aren't you in the same class? Shouldn't you be studying?" he asked. "Oh yeah, I will. I just need to kick back a little before you know." "Keep kicking back and say bye to Yale," he replied. "Whoa, where'd that come from?" I asked. "Just saying, at some point something's got to give," he said under his breath. A few months prior, I accepted an offer to attend Yale University with a full-ride scholarship. As much as I would have liked to sit back and enjoy the rest of my time at Mercersburg, I had to maintain what I'd started. I was told very explicitly by Yale's admissions people that if there were any discrepancies with my past performance and my final semester, my admission could be revoked. There were only 3 more things I had to get through before I was on Easy Street. And by Easy Street, I mean the street where I didn't have to kill myself every couple of hours. I had all my finals, the wrestling state championship, and the fall play. The first of the 3 started tomorrow, my AP Bio final. "So what? You're mad I got into school early and you're still waiting to hear back?" I asked. "What? No, I just don't know why you'd stop working so hard so close to the finish," he replied. In the past, I had tried to make it seem like I worked hard for my accomplishments, but eventually I just got tired of it. Also, people were way more impressed when they knew I didn't try and still outperformed everybody. "All right, well, maybe when Julliard lets you in or whatever you'll take the stick out your ass," I replied. "Nope, still gonna need it when I get in." "That's kind of my whole point," he said. From across the room, Mark yelled for me. I looked at Jay apologizingly. "It's fine, go," he said. I left and sat down with Mark and his friends. I let Mark cheat off me in geometry sophomore year. Ever since I've been one of his many self-proclaimed best friends. "What's up, fuckwad?" Mark asked as I joined him. John Dempsey from the football team, Marisha Hall volleyball star, and Grace Bernstein singer-songwriter and halfway famous TikTok influencer. I smiled and sat down. Mark wasn't the worst. He just wasn't the best. I hung around him because, well, he made life easier. If I wanted to talk to a girl, bam, Mark knew her and could make introductions easy. If I wanted booze for a night of video games with Jay, what do you know, Mark showed up with a shampoo bottle full of vodka. We had a transactional friendship, but still a friendship. But he wasn't my main priority, Grace was. I had known her and liked her from afar for years. Even with my power, I could never find the timing to just ask her out. Believe me, I tried, but every time it felt weird. Like in acting, you knew when a scene felt right, and with her, the scene never felt right no matter how many takes I did. "Studying for bio tomorrow?" she asked. "Nope." I grinned. She rolled her eyes. "How shocking," she said, not looking up from her textbook. I liked Grace. I never had to quick load when talking to her. I tried, but every time my first instinct was always the best. She could tell the quick load attempts were forced. Everything with her just flowed. Come on, it's not like anybody's gonna unfollow you because you took a break from studying and talked to me for a few minutes, I said. No, but Harvard will if I fuck this exam up. What, AP Bio is a prerequisite for a music major now? No, but it's a prerequisite for me not having to take it in college. See? Foresight. You should try it sometime, she quipped. Impossible. My foresight was surgically removed by a rabbi when I was a baby, I said. She smiled, laughed, and shook her head. Mohels do circumcisions, not rabbis, she said. Then who's running around with my foresight? I asked. We laughed together. The rest of the table didn't follow. With that, I said my goodbyes and went back to my dorm. Nighttime was usually the only drawback with my power. When most people were studying, practicing, and working, I was bored. I mostly played video games. But without having to try at anything, being alone was rough. There was nobody to impress, nobody to charm. Just me. The next day was my 18th birthday. I wasn't thrilled it would be spent killing myself repeatedly over a biology final. But there were worse ways to spend your birthday. Like bowling. I didn't need to quickload until halfway through the bio final. Most of the processes and cell factoids I remembered from lectures. But when it came to labeling every part of the cell, fuck that shit. I excused myself to go to the bathroom. At the bottle of sleeping pills and darkness, cold, nothing. Then light, warmth, and a hospital room. I leaned up in the bed. My parents were sitting next to my bed. They told me somebody found me in the bathroom. I was almost dead when they pumped my stomach. It stopped working. The quick loading was gone. When I tried to kill myself this time, it would have worked. My parents were terrified. They told me I didn't have to finish the year. I could take a gap year before college and spend some time getting better. I'm fine. It was an accident, I said. They looked at each other and nodded solemnly. My psychiatrist told them I'd say something like that. After 2 weeks and dozens of psych evals, I was released. It was easier to lie and tell them I wanted to kill myself than explain to them that a fish god gave me the power to quick load so long as I OD'd now and then. The only people who visited me from school were Jay and Grace. They were a little freaked out at first, but once they got the vibe that I didn't need the teary-eyed sympathy, things went back to normal. At school, not so much. Hey man, if you ever need somebody to talk to, I'm always here, Mark said when I saw him at lunch my first day back. Thanks, Mark, I said, taken aback. He patted me on the shoulder and went back to talking about fishing with Jeremy Coombs. Mark and I never spoke about anything serious. It was usually small talk and the lowest brow humor. I didn't know if he was serious. We were just transactional friends. I helped him cheat. He helped me socially. Why was he being kind? Where were the smug faces, the sneers and jeers that came before a quick load? Didn't they want to see me fall from grace? Mark wasn't alone in the outpouring of goodwill towards me. People I'd barely spoken to offered themselves as resources if I needed help. I so badly wanted to appreciate them, but I just felt anger. Where was this love and support for the scared 14-year-old version of myself? How could I have asked them for help back then? Back when I wasn't impressive. Back when I was nobody to them. I swallowed the negative feeling I had a lot of catching up to do. I missed exam week and the wrestling state championship during my absence. I dodged a bullet with the wrestling, but I still had to take my finals and do the play. That left me with an entire semester's worth of material to cover and the role of Hamlet to learn in less than 2 weeks. My parents reached out to Yale. They said the best they could do was put me on the wait list for next year if I didn't finish what I'd started this semester. I sat down in my dorm and prepared to study for the first time in 3 years. Cue montage. I turned on some high-intensity focus EDM. I set my pens and highlighters next to my books. I put a water bottle and a protein bar on my desk. I opened the textbook. I started reading. After about 30 seconds, panic attack. I curled up on the floor sobbing. Right back to where I was 3 years ago as a terrified 14-year-old. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it, not after all this time. I was a fraud. I was a liar. I cheated and stole everything I'd ever earned. I didn't deserve to pass these exams. I should fail. I deserved to fail. Then there was a knock at the door. "Jake, you good?" Jay asked before opening the door. He saw me on the floor, picked me up, and sat me down back in my chair. "Come on, it's okay, you got this," Jay said. I don't deserve this. I'm a fraud. Jake, stop, just I can't explain it, but it wasn't really me. I was quick-loading. Freshman year, Shut up, just shut the fuck up, he yelled. I'd never heard Jay yell before. It worked. I shut up. We're going to sit here and I'm going to help you study. You're going to be fine. You're not a fraud, you don't understand. I cheated. I can't explain how because it'll sound crazy, but hey, it doesn't matter. I don't give a shit. I figured you were using a gimmick or something. That's not why I'm here. That's not why we're friends, he said. What do you mean? I asked, sniffling. You were the first person that told me they liked my music. Do you understand what that meant to me? He said, swallowing tears. I took a deep breath and recollected myself. It was okay, I joked. Okay? Yeah, well, okay got me into Juilliard. What? Why didn't you tell me earlier? I was going to tell you, but then, Oh, right. Yeah, he said. I hugged him. I'm proud of you. You earned this, I said. Yeah, I know. Now if you're done with whatever I just saw, can we… Right, yes, I said, and we started studying. He helped teach me the material from each class for 4 nights in a row. But then there was the matter of the play, which for some reason was far more stressful. Even with quick loading, the acting was the only thing that I had to try to get good at. I had to memorize the lines. Quick loading was like acting for film or TV. If I screwed up, I'd just quick load and get another take until I felt like I nailed it. But this was theater, and I had to memorize the lines. I asked Grace for help, and of course, she said yes. We sat outside the student center before curfew. To sleep, perchance to dream. Aye, there's the rub. For in that sleep of death, what dreams may come, when we have shuffled off this mortal coil. I forgot the rest of the line. Must give us pause. There's the respect. Grace fed me the line. Must give us pause. There's the respect, I repeated, and paused. I tried to conjure the line, but I had nothing. I can't do this. I'll just tell Mr. Collins to give it to the junior understudy, I said. No, you're not. Come on, how did you learn the plays for the last 3 years? She asked. I can't explain. It's like I had infinite tries. If I messed up, there was always another chance, I said. I get that. You're a senior. You may never act again. This is your last chance, she said. That's not… Oh, wait, no. You're right. That's exactly it, I said. I hadn't thought of it that way. Was I sad that this was my last play? I mean, I liked acting, but it was just a means to an end. It looked good on the college resume. It was the only thing that was work but felt, sustainable. How did you rehearse last year? When you didn't have to worry about time? She asked. I just repeated the lines over and over again until it felt right, I replied. So why doesn't it work now? There's just too much content to memorize. It's impossible to learn this book in a week, I said, throwing down the script. Grace nodded. What was your first line from the play last year? She asked. It's all right. I came back, I replied without thinking. And your last line? She asked. It was just a shh. Willie Loman hushes his wife before he commits suicide. Wait, am I typecast as the suicidal character? Last year Willie Loman in Death of a Salesman, Hamlet this year… Why was anybody surprised? I said. Grace was laughing. What? I asked. You say you didn't memorize anything last year, but you can remember the lines without thinking now. Oh, shit. You're right. Where do you go when you remember last year's lines? She asked. Feeling. I remember how I felt when I performed them, I replied in revelation. So how do you feel now? Better, I said, and ran to hug her. The hug became a kiss. Why didn't you do that sooner? She asked. Believe me, I tried, I said, and kissed her again. She stopped. Hey, if we're going to keep doing this, I just need to know you're seeing a therapist, and not just using me as a… Well, I don't want to say suicide rebound, but… Oh yeah, no, don't worry. So much therapy. All the therapy, I laughed. She laughed back, nodded, and kissed me again. I sat down for my last final exam for the semester. This, and then the play tonight, and it was over. I'd be free. The exam proctor handed me the thick exam packet. Your time starts now, the proctor said, and started the clock. I looked down at the first question and my stomach sank. I didn't know the answer, or the next one, or the one after. I looked down at the pocket of my backpack where I used to keep the pills for quick loading. The same happened every exam leading up to this one. And like those exams, I took 4 deep breaths, found my center, and got to work. The stage lights blinded me. The seats were packed, but at that moment I was alone. I was Hamlet, holding a skull being all nihilistic and shit. Thus, conscience doth make cowards of us all, and thus the native hue of resolution is sicklied o'er with the pale cast of thought. I spoke into nothingness. My mind went blank, but not because I forgot the line. The moment commanded it. I stared into the plastic skull in my hand, and I imagined it as my own. What I'd be if not for the good grace of a fish god, and later a janitor who found me overdosing. A god in his own right. I sat in the moment and let them hang, waiting for my next words. I drew a breath. And enterprises of great pith and moment, with disregard their currents turn awry, and lose the name of action. I stared deeper into the skull. I looked for something. Anything other than the heavy-handed death metaphor that it was. The fair Ophelia, nymph, in thy orisons, be all my sins remembered. I spoke, and my co-star entered stage left. The rest of the play was a blur. I stopped thinking, and flowed with the memory of a feeling. After the play, I sat in the woods at night with Jay and Grace. We passed around a 40-ounce of cheap beer, and a joint that Mark offered to congratulate me. How did you do on AP Euro? Jay asked. I shrugged. Doesn't matter. I tried, I said. He nodded and smiled. Do you think you'll still go to Yale next year? Grace asked. If they'll still have me. I don't know, I'm just taking everything as it comes these days. There was silence. We passed the 40 and the joint around a few times before Grace broke the silence again. How have you been? I mean, you know, she asked. I nodded in understanding. It must have been difficult for them to ask, and they had a right to know. They kept me alive. I guess I'm still surprised. I was certain that as soon as I came back, everyone would turn on me. Like they'd see me fail and just tell each other, told you, he's a fraud, I replied. Why would you think that? Jay asked. I just knew, or I thought I knew. Something must have changed, I said. You didn't fail Jake. You needed help, Grace said. Is there a difference? I asked. You acted... No, you thought you were better than everyone else, Jake. No, I didn't. I just didn't think I needed to work hard as everybody else, I defended. Is there a difference? Jay asked. I thought about it for a moment. They were right. In the quick loads where people whispered about me. When I saw their resentment, it was always when I acted indifferently. When I acted like I was too smart for the class, or school, or for, well, the world. I made fun of the kids who tried hard, because I was afraid to try and fail. I'm sorry. I passed the 40-ounce back to Jay. I was a dick. You were. But you were also unwell. It's okay. You do the same for me. You're still taking the meds, right? Jay asked. I am. You can tell my mom, too. I know she texts you to spy on me, I said. There was a splash in the distance. We were only a few hundred yards from the Bayuca and the Harvard reject exit. We looked at each other and ran. The bridge was empty, but in the darkness we could hear splashing and yelling come from the water. A boy's voice screamed, "Help!" I ran closer to the water and saw him struggling to keep afloat. He bobbed over the water with flailing limbs that couldn't keep him above the water line. I jumped in and swam towards him. Before I could reach him, the screaming stopped and Bubbles floated to the surface where I'd last seen him. I took a deep breath and dove into the dark water. I swam as fast as I could, downward into nothingness. I scanned around me the water and silt burned into my eyes. And then a pale hand smacked me in the face. I pulled up and kicked as hard as possible. We were sinking. I wasn't strong enough to get us out. My breath gave out, and I began to choke on the water that flooded my lungs. The light began to fade, this time for good. I looked at the dead boy in my arms. He was a freshman, still in his uniform. A light appeared from the darkness, and within moments the fish god swam around us. He swam circles around us and began his deep guttural chant. The light from the fish god faded away. The light turned back into darkness, and then to cold. Well, I thought. I tried. Light. Warmth. Vision. I was back sitting with Jay and Grace. How did you do on AP Euro? Jay asked. We were back in the woods. Jay passed me the joint. I shot up from the ground and ran to the bridge. Jake? Grace asked. I need help. Follow me, I yelled back. We ran to the bridge and found the boy standing on top of the bridge. I ran to him. Please leave, the boy said, crying. What's your name? Go away, What's your name? I yelled. He sobbed. Jack. Okay, Jack. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to come down and then we're going to go talk, okay? No, I can't go back. They'll all hate me. Nobody's going to hate you, Jack. Okay, buddy, listen. I know what you're feeling. No, you don't. Nobody. You think this is your only option. It's not. Please, please believe me. It's not, I yelled. He cried and looked down at the water. It's not your fault, Jack, I cried. He looked back at me. He climbed down from the stone wall and collapsed into a ball. I held him as he sobbed. It's not your fault. The end. This has been a Right On Audio presentation of Quickload, a Right On Press feature presentation.
We hope you've enjoyed this Right On Audio feature presentation. If so, please like, share, and subscribe to receive notifications of all our latest content, and join us again soon for our next Right On Audio feature presentation.